Levy County, Florida. September 22nd, 2010. Derek Thompson has been renovating his dream home for 6 months. New roof, new foundation. But today, after a historic storm, a sinkhole opens in his backyard. He grabs a flashlight to check the damage. He expects to see mud, rocks, maybe a broken pipe. But at the bottom of the hole, he sees something that makes him call the police immediately. Human remains. And it's not just one person. It is 147 people, hidden for 87 years, right underneath a quiet neighborhood. This is the story of how one man's backyard renovation uncovered a century-old mystery. Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear this story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now let me tell you this story. Derek Thompson had been renovating his house for 6 months when everything fell apart. September 22nd, 2010. Heavy rain was forecast, 8 to 10 inches. The Weather Service issued flash flood warnings across Levy County, Florida. Derek wasn't worried. He'd fixed the foundation, replaced the roof. The house was solid. The rain started at noon and didn't stop for 18 hours. By morning, Derek's backyard was underwater. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was the hole. Right in the middle of the yard, about 30 feet from his back door, the ground had collapsed. 8 feet wide, 6 feet deep. The edges were jagged and fresh. A sinkhole. Derek stood at the edge in his work boots, staring down into muddy water. This was going to cost thousands he didn't have. Thousands more after he'd already spent every penny on renovations. He called Tom Bailey, a structural engineer he knew from Atlanta. "Tom, I've got a sinkhole. Can you come look?" "How big?" 8 feet across, maybe 6 deep. "I'll be there by 2. Derek spent the morning bailing water out of the hole with a bucket. The rain had stopped, but the hole was still half full. He needed to see how bad the damage was. By the time Tom arrived, Derek had removed most of the water. The bottom of the hole was visible. Mud, rocks, nothing unusual. Tom walked to the edge and looked down. "This doesn't look natural," Tom said. "What do you mean?" "Sinkholes have smooth sides, funnel-shaped. This looks like something collapsed from underneath, like there was a void, and the rain made the soil give way." "A void? Like what? A septic tank?" "I don't know. Let me get a closer look." Tom climbed down into the hole with a flashlight. He crouched at the bottom and started brushing away mud with his hands. He stopped moving. "Tom?" Derek called down. Tom didn't respond. He was staring at something. "Tom, what is it?" Tom stood up slowly. His face had gone white. His hand was shaking. "Derek, you need to call 911 right now." "What?" "Why? There are remains down here." Derek felt his stomach drop. "What?" "Human remains. And I think," Tom brushed away more mud, "there's more than one." Derek's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. He dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency?" I think we found a grave in my backyard. In a sinkhole. Multiple remains." "Sir, can you confirm what you're seeing?" "Bones. My engineer found them. Please send someone." "Stay on the line. Officers are being dispatched to your location." Derek hung up. He looked down at Tom, who was still standing in the hole, staring at the ground. "How many?" Derek asked. "I don't know. But Derek, these aren't recent. These are old. Really old." 15 minutes later, the first police car arrived, then another, then a detective, then someone from the medical examiner's office. Yellow tape went up. Lights were set up around the hole. More vehicles arrived, more people in official uniforms. Detective Raymond Cole was in charge. Gray hair, 50s, serious face. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Detective Cole. Can you tell me what happened?" Derek explained. "The storm, the sinkhole. Calling Tom, finding the remains." Cole made notes. "How long have you owned this property?" 6 months. "Since March. Did you do any excavation work before today?" "No, just cleared weeds. I was going to build a patio, but I hadn't started digging." Cole walked to the edge of the hole. He looked down. His expression didn't change, but Derek saw his jaw tighten. Mr. Thompson, we're going to need to do a full excavation. This is going to take time. You won't be able to access your backyard. Okay. How many? How many people are down there? Cole looked at him. We don't know yet. But from what I can see, at least 5. 5. 5 bodies buried in Derek's backyard. Derek felt his legs go weak. He sat down hard on his back porch steps. 5 people, deceased, under his yard, under where he'd been clearing weeds and planning to build a patio. By evening, they'd set up a large tent over the excavation site. Portable lights inside. People in white suits, carefully removing soil one small scoop at a time. Derek sat on his porch and watched. He couldn't look away. He couldn't process it. Who were they? How long had they been there? What happened to them? He went inside when it got dark. He tried to sleep. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the shadows in the mud, the shape of things that used to be people. The next morning, Detective Cole knocked on Derek's door. Derek opened it. Cole's face was grim. Mr. Thompson, can I come in? Yeah. Of course. They sat at Derek's kitchen table. We've recovered 40 individuals from your property so far, Cole said. Derek stared at him. 40, not 5. 40. What? The word barely came out. All skeletal remains. All appeared to be African American based on preliminary analysis. All from approximately the same time period. Clothing fragments and personal items suggest the 1920s era. 1920s? That's 90 years ago. Yes. Mr. Thompson, this isn't a cemetery. There are no coffins, no burial markers. The remains are layered closely together in some areas. This is a mass grave. Derek felt a wave of nausea. Who were they? We don't know yet. But we're going to find out. I've contacted Dr. James Hartwell, a historian from the University of Florida. He's going to help us identify what happened here. We're also going to need to expand our search. What do you mean? We need to scan the entire neighborhood. If there are 40 individuals in your yard, there might be more elsewhere. The entire neighborhood? Yes. Cole left. Derek sat alone at his kitchen table. 40 people. 40 human beings. Buried under his backyard like they never existed. Like they never mattered. Derek ran to the bathroom and splashed cold water on his face, trying to breathe. That afternoon, Mrs. Patterson from 3 houses down came to his door. She was 72. Had lived in the neighborhood since 1970. Did you know? She demanded when Derek answered. Know what? About the bodies. When you bought this house, did you know? Of course not. How would I? My grandchildren played in this yard, Mr. Thompson. My great-grandchildren. We've been living on top of a graveyard for 40 years and nobody told us? I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. This is terrible. I can't live here anymore. She walked away. Derek watched her go. Over the next week, Derek watched his neighbors pack up and leave. One by one, houses went up for sale. Moving trucks arrived and departed. People who'd lived here for decades, gone in days. And the ones who stayed wouldn't look at Derek, wouldn't talk to him, like somehow this was his fault. Like he'd put those people there. 3 days after the discovery, Derek's phone rang. It was his mother. Derek, I saw the news. Are you okay? No, Mom, I'm not okay. You need to come home. Come back to Atlanta. Sell that house and get out of there. I can't just leave. Yes, you can. This isn't your problem. Those people have been gone for 90 years. There's nothing you can do for them. I found them, Mom. They're my responsibility now. Derek, listen to yourself. You bought a house. You didn't sign up to be part of some historical tragedy. Just walk away. I can't. Why not? Because nobody else will care if I don't. His mother was quiet for a moment. Derek, please. I'm worried about you. I'm fine. No, you're not. I can hear it in your voice. She was right. Derek wasn't fine. He hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time since the discovery. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the excavation. He'd started seeing a therapist. Dr. Linda Martinez. She specialized in trauma. What you're experiencing is normal, Doctor, Martinez told him in their first session. You've had a severe shock. Your sense of safety has been violated. Your home, the place that should feel most secure, has become a crime scene. I keep thinking about them, Derek said. The people. Who they were. How scared they must have been. That's empathy. That's you trying to make sense of something senseless. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't think about anything else. Have you considered leaving? Selling the house? Everyone keeps telling me that. But I can't. If I leave, who's going to make sure their story gets told? Who's going to make sure they're not forgotten again? Dr. Martinez leaned forward. Derek, you need to understand something. You can't save them. They're already gone. All you can do is take care of yourself. But what if taking care of myself means letting them be forgotten again? Then you need to decide what's more important. Your mental health, or your sense of obligation to strangers who died before you were born. Derek didn't have an answer for that. 1 week after the discovery, Detective Cole returned with Dr. James Hartwell. Dr. Hartwell was thin, 60s, glasses. He looked exactly like a history professor. They sat at Derek's kitchen table again. Derek had stopped cleaning. Dishes piled up in the sink. Laundry overflowed from the bedroom. He couldn't make himself care about normal things anymore. Mr. Thompson, we've completed ground-penetrating radar scans of this neighborhood, Cole began. Every property on this street shows evidence of remains underneath. Derek stared at him. Every house? All 30 houses. Based on the density of what we're seeing, we estimate between 100 and 150 individuals total across the entire subdivision. Derek put his head in his hands. 150 people, an entire neighborhood built on top of them. Dr. Hartwell spoke. Mr. Thompson, I've been researching the history of this land. In 1920, there was an African-American community here called Cypress Grove. Census records show a population of approximately 152 people. The town was founded in 1890 by freed slaves. It had a church, a school, a general store. By all accounts, it was thriving. What happened to it? Derek asked, not looking up. In the 1930 census, Cypress Grove doesn't appear. The town simply vanishes from all official records. No explanation. No documentation. It's like it never existed. How does an entire town just disappear? Dr. Hartwell and Cole exchanged a look. We believe Cypress Grove was the site of a systematic attack, Dr. Hartwell said quietly. January of 1923. The same period as the Rosewood incident, which occurred about 90 miles from here. We found a brief newspaper article dated January 23, 1923. It mentions a civil disturbance in Levy County. 2 sentences. No details. No follow-up coverage. Nothing. Derek finally looked up. Someone ended their lives and buried them. Yes. And then the county seized the land for alleged unpaid taxes in March 1923. The land sat empty for 42 years. Then, in 1965, a developer named Harold Pritchard purchased it for $8,000 and built this subdivision. He built houses on top of a grave, Derek said flatly. We don't know if he was aware. He had to know, Derek shouted, standing up. You don't dig foundations for 30 houses without finding something. He had to know. Cole held up a hand. Mr. Thompson, Harold Pritchard died in 1988. We can't question him. But yes, it's likely he knew something. Whether he knew the full extent, we can't say. Derek sat back down. His hands were shaking. What happens now? Now, we excavate every property. We recover every individual. We identify them if possible. And we figure out exactly what happened in January 1923, Cole said. How long will that take? Months. Maybe longer. And Mr. Thompson, your house will need to be condemned. All 30 houses will. This entire neighborhood is a crime scene and a historical site. No one can continue living here. Derek nodded slowly. Of course he was losing his house. Of course he'd spent every penny he had renovating a house built on top of a tragedy. Of course his dream was dead. When do I have to leave? 30 days. After they left, Derek sat at his kitchen table and cried for the first time since he was a child. The excavation took 6 weeks. Every day, Derek watched from his porch as archaeologists and forensic anthropologists carefully removed soil, as they documented everything. as they placed remains in numbered containers. The numbers kept climbing. 50, 60, 80, 100. Each new discovery was announced. Each one made the news. Each one reminded Derek that he'd been living on top of this for 6 months without knowing. He stopped going to the grocery store. People recognized him. They pointed. They whispered. Some approached him with questions he couldn't answer. He had food delivered instead. He stayed inside except to sit on his porch and watch the excavation. Dr. Martinez was worried about him. "You're isolating," she said in their session. "That's dangerous. I can't face people. They all want to know about the bodies. Like I'm some kind of expert on death now. You're not responsible for what happened here 90 years ago, but I'm responsible for what happens now. For making sure people remember. For making sure this doesn't get buried again. At what cost to yourself?" Derek didn't answer. 6 weeks after the discovery, Dr. Angela Pierce, the lead forensic anthropologist, held a press conference. Derek watched it on TV. He couldn't make himself go in person. Dr. Pierce stood at a podium. Behind her were photos of the excavation site, professional, clinical. They didn't show what Derek had seen. The personal items still found near the remains. "We have recovered 147 sets of remains from the Magnolia Lane neighborhood," Dr. Pierce announced. Her voice was steady. "Matter of fact, all victims appear to be African American. Ages range from 2 years old to 71 years old. 63 of the victims were children under the age of 18. 2 years old." Derek thought about that. A 2-year-old child. Life cut short. He felt sick and had to turn away from the screen. Dr. Pierce continued. "The forensic evidence tells a grim story. The majority of victims show evidence of fatal wounds consistent with firearms. Others show signs of blunt force trauma. 24 show evidence of exposure to extreme heat. This pattern is consistent with a coordinated attack. We are collaborating with Dr. James Hartwell to identify victims through historical records. We have also issued a public request for any information regarding Cypress Grove or the events of January 1923. If anyone has family history, photographs, documents, or stories about this community, please contact us." The press conference ended. Derek sat on his couch staring at the blank TV screen. 147 people, 63 children. His phone rang. It was Detective Cole. "Mr. Thompson, we found a survivor." "What?" "A survivor of the event. Dr. Hartwell located a list of people who escaped Cypress Grove in 1923. Most are deceased, but one is still alive. Ruth Washington. She's 97 years old. She lives in a nursing home in Jacksonville." "She survived?" Derek whispered. "She was 10 years old when it happened. We'd like to interview her. And Mr. Thompson, I think you should come. You're the reason this story is being told. She deserves to meet you. I don't know if I can handle this. I understand. But she's been carrying this secret for 87 years. She's ready to tell someone. And I think it would mean a lot to her to know that someone cares." Derek closed his eyes. "Okay, I'll come." They drove to Jacksonville the next day. Detective Cole, Dr. Hartwell, and Derek. Derek sat in the back seat and stared out the window. He hadn't left Levy County since the discovery. The world looked different now. Brighter, louder, like it was mocking him. The nursing home was called Sunrise Senior Living. Clean, bright, cheerful. It felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. Ruth Washington was in room 214. She was tiny, barely 4 feet tall, in a wheelchair by the window. White hair pulled back in a bun, dark skin deeply wrinkled. But her eyes were sharp, alert, intelligent. "Mrs. Washington, I'm Detective Cole. This is Dr. Hartwell from the University of Florida. And this is Derek Thompson." She looked at each of them carefully. Her gaze stopped on Derek and stayed there. "You're the one who found them," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am," Derek managed to say. "I knew someone would eventually." Her voice was quiet but clear. "I've been waiting 87 years for this moment. Mrs. Washington, would you be willing to tell us what happened in Cypress Grove?" "Doctor," Hartwell asked gently. She was quiet for a long time. Her hands gripped the armrests of her wheelchair. Derek saw them shaking. Finally, she spoke. "I haven't said the name Cypress Grove out loud since 1923. My husband died 10 years ago. He never knew where I was really from. I never told my children. I never told anyone." "We understand this is difficult," Cole said. "Take your time." Ruth looked out the window. My father was Pastor Isaiah Freeman. He led the First Baptist Church in Cypress Grove. My mother was Martha. She sang in the choir. I was their only child. I was 10 years old in January of 1923. She took a shaky breath. January 15th, a Monday. It was cold for Florida, maybe 50 degrees. I remember because Mama made me wear my good sweater to school. I didn't want to. It was itchy, but she made me. Her voice was steady now, like she was reading from a script she'd memorized decades ago but never dared to speak aloud. I was at Miss Hayes' schoolhouse. Dorothy Hayes was our teacher. She was 28 years old, beautiful, kind. She taught all of us together, 1st grade through 8th grade, all in one room. There were 23 of us that day. We were working on arithmetic, long division. I was good at it. I liked numbers. They made sense. They followed rules. Ruth's hands tightened on the armrests. That's when we heard the first sound. Like a firecracker, but louder. Derek felt his chest tighten. Miss Hayes told us to get under our desks, right now. Her voice was sharp, scared. I'd never heard her sound like that before. She went to the window. I saw her face go white. She gasped. I looked too. I shouldn't have, but I looked. The church was burning. My father's church. Black smoke pouring out the windows. And there were men, on horses, with weapons. People were running, screaming. I saw Mr. Carter fall. He didn't get back up. I saw Mrs. Wilkins with her baby. She was running. Then she fell. The bundle in her arms fell with her. Neither of them moved again. Derek closed his eyes. He felt a profound sadness wash over him. Miss Hayes turned to us. She was crying. She said, "Run. Out the back door. Into the woods. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just run." So we ran. Ruth's voice broke. Tears streamed down her face. I ran so fast. I heard more noise behind me. I heard more screaming. I heard my mother calling my name. I wanted to go back, but I kept running. I ran into the swamp. I hid in the water, up to my neck. The water was so cold. There were mosquitoes everywhere. I could hear them. The men, searching the swamp, calling out to each other, laughing. The word hung in the air. I stayed in that water for 3 days. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. I was so scared, so cold. I thought I wasn't going to make it. On the 3rd day, the voices stopped. The swamp got quiet. That's when I heard my name. A man's voice. But it was different. Softer. It was John Whitfield, a local farmer. He was different from the others. He pulled me out of that swamp. He wrapped me in a blanket. I was shaking so hard I couldn't stand. He said, "You're safe now, child. But you can never go back. You can never tell anyone where you're from. If they know you survived, they might come for you." He hid me under hay in his wagon. He drove me to his sister's house in Jacksonville. She took me in. She raised me as her own. She told people I was an orphan from Georgia. I changed my last name from Freeman to Washington. I never went back to Cypress Grove. I never talked about it. For 87 years, I've kept this secret. For 87 years, I've been afraid. She looked at Derek. Fresh tears rolled down her face. But I'm not afraid anymore. Because they're not forgotten anymore. Because of you. Derek couldn't hold it back. He started crying, sobbing. His whole body shook. Ruth reached out a trembling hand. Derek took it. Her skin was paper thin. Her grip was weak, but she held on. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for finding them. Thank you for not letting them stay buried. Thank you for giving them back their names." "I'm so sorry," Derek choked out. "I'm so sorry for what happened to them. To your parents. To everyone. It's not your fault, child. You weren't even born. But I've been walking on top of them. Living on top of them. I've been..." You found them. That's what matters. After 87 years, someone finally found them. They stayed with Ruth for 3 more hours. She told them names, faces, stories. Pastor Isaiah Freeman, 42 years old, lost while trying to protect people sheltering in his church. Martha Freeman, 39, lost trying to reach her daughter. Dorothy Hayes, 28, lost while leading children to safety. 7 of her students made it out. 16 didn't. Samuel Bennett, 14, lost running toward the swamp. His parents were killed too. The Wilkins family, Thomas, 35, Sarah, 32, James, 8, Grace, 6, baby Emma, 2. All lost, all placed in the same ground. Elder Josephine Carter, 71, the village midwife who'd delivered most of the children in town. She perished when her home was set ablaze. The Morrison twins, 5 years old, found together. On and on. Name after name, story after story. 147 lives. 147 people who had families and dreams and futures until January 15th, 1923. Dr. Hartwell recorded everything. His hands shook as he wrote. When they finally left, Ruth grabbed Derek's hand one more time. "Will they get a proper burial?" she asked. "A real funeral? With their names spoken?" "Yes, ma'am. I promise you they will." She smiled through her tears. "Good. That's all I wanted. Just for someone to say their names. Just for someone to remember they existed." In the car on the way back, Derek sat in the back seat and stared at nothing. Cole looked at him in the rearview mirror. "You okay?" "No. It's a lot to process." "Children," Derek said. "They took children. 2-year-olds, 5-year-olds. I know. And then they just buried them. Covered them up, planted trees, built houses, acted like it never happened. That's why what you're doing matters. You're making sure people know what happened. You're making sure they're not forgotten." "But at what cost?" Derek whispered. "I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't think about anything else. This is tearing me apart." Dr. Hartwell turned around in the passenger seat. "Mr. Thompson, I've studied these kinds of events for 30 years. And I can tell you this, the people who survive this kind of trauma carry it forever. Ruth Washington carried it for 87 years. You've been carrying it for 6 weeks. It's going to hurt. But it's also important. Because when we forget these things, we risk letting history repeat itself. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this. You don't have to be strong. You just have to care. And you clearly do." When Derek got home, there was a woman waiting on his front porch. She was in her 70s. Black, gray hair, red eyes like she'd been crying. "Mr. Thompson?" she asked as he approached. "Yes? My name is Gloria Bennett. My grandfather was Samuel Bennett. He was 14 when he was taken." Derek felt his knees go weak. "I'm so sorry. We just came from interviewing Ruth Washington. She told us about Samuel." "I know. Dr. Hartwell called me. He gave me your address. I hope that's okay." "Of course. I wanted to thank you. My grandmother never told me what really happened to my grandfather. She would only say, he disappeared in 1923. She died when I was 12. I always wondered what happened to him. Now I know. I wish I had better news. Better than not knowing. I've been searching for answers for 60 years. Now I have them. Because of you." They stood on Derek's porch in silence for a moment. "Mr. Thompson, I have something. My grandmother kept a photograph. It's my grandfather with his church group, from 1922, the year before. Would you like to see it?" "Yes, please." Gloria pulled a small photograph from her purse. Faded, cracked along one edge. But clear enough. It showed about 20 people standing in front of a wooden church. Adults in the back row, children in the front. In the front row, third from the left, was a boy, 14 years old, wearing a white shirt and suspenders, smiling at the camera, his whole life ahead of him. On the back, in pencil, Samuel Bennett, First Baptist Church Choir, 1922. Derek stared at the photo. This was Samuel, not just a name Ruth had spoken, not just a number, a real person, a boy who smiled, who sang in the choir, who had dreams. Until January 15th, 1923. Can I make a copy of this? Derek asked. You can have it. I have the negative. I want people to see his face. I want people to know he was real. Thank you. Gloria left. Derek went inside and put the photograph on his kitchen table. He stared at Samuel Bennett's smiling face for a long time. That night, Derek had a nightmare. He was in the sinkhole, digging. He looked up and saw them, all 147 of them, standing at the edge of the hole, staring down at him, silent. Samuel Bennett was there, still smiling, still wearing his white shirt and suspenders. Pastor Freeman was there, tall, dignified. Martha Freeman was there, reaching for her daughter. Dorothy Hayes was there, her 23 students behind her, 16 of them gone, 7 survivors scattered to the wind. Baby Emma Wilkins was there, 2 years old, still in her mother's arms. They all stared at Derek, waiting, their eyes full of a silence that was louder than any scream. Derek woke up shouting. He called Dr. Martinez at 2 a.m. I can't do this, he sobbed into the phone. I can't handle this. It's too much. Derek, where are you? At home, in bed. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see them. See who? The people, the victims. They're waiting for something from me, and I don't know what it is. Derek, listen to me. You're having a trauma response. This is normal given what you've experienced. But you need help. Real help. I think you should check yourself into a facility for a few days. Get some medication to help you sleep. Get some intensive therapy. I can't leave. The excavation isn't finished. I need to be here. You don't need to be there. The professionals can handle it. You need to take care of yourself. But if I leave, who's going to make sure they're treated with respect? Who's going to make sure their story is told right? Derek, you can't save them. They're already gone. But I can save their memory. I can make sure people remember what happened. Dr. Martinez was quiet for a moment. Okay, if you won't check yourself in, then we need to meet tomorrow. First thing, can you do that? Yes. And Derek, call me if you have another nightmare. Anytime, day or night. Okay? Okay. Derek didn't sleep the rest of the night. He sat at his kitchen table and stared at Samuel Bennett's photograph until the sun came up. Over the next 2 weeks, more descendants came forward. They'd seen the news, recognized names, recognized their own family history in the story of Cypress Grove. One woman, Teresa Williams, was 75. Her great-grandfather was Elder James Williams, 48 when he passed. He'd been a deacon at the church. My great-grandmother escaped, Teresa told Derek when she visited. She was pregnant at the time, 8 months. She hid in the swamp like Ruth, a different part of the swamp. She didn't know Ruth was there too. She stayed hidden for 2 days. Then she walked 15 miles to the next town. She had her baby there. My grandfather. She never went back to Cypress Grove. She never talked about what happened. She told everyone her husband died in an accident. She carried that lie until she died in 1965. I'm sorry, Derek said. Don't be sorry. Be angry. They took 147 people and nobody cared. The newspapers barely mentioned it. The police did nothing. The people who did it went on with their lives. They raised families. They died old in their beds. They never faced consequences. I know. It's not fair. Fair? Teresa laughed bitterly. Fair doesn't exist for black people in America. It never has. But at least now people know what happened. At least now their names will be remembered. That's something. That's more than we had before. Another descendant, Michael Carter, 68, came with his entire extended family, 15 people, 3 generations. Our ancestor was Elder Josephine Carter, Michael explained. She was the midwife. She delivered most of the children in Cypress Grove, including Ruth Washington. When we heard Ruth's testimony, when she mentioned Josephine's name, my whole family started crying. We never knew what happened to her. We have family stories that she disappeared in the 1920s, but now we know she didn't disappear. She was taken from us. Ruth said she was trapped in her home during the fire. Derek said quietly. Michael's jaw clenched. 71 years old, a healer, a woman who spent her whole life bringing children into the world. And they ended her life like that. His wife, standing beside him, wiped tears from her face. At least we can bury her properly now. At least we can say goodbye. Over and over, descendants came. Each one with a story. Each one with a photograph, or a document, or a memory passed down through generations. Dr. Hartwell collected everything. He was building a comprehensive record, a book, a memorial to make sure Cypress Grove would never be forgotten again. 8 weeks after the discovery, the excavation was complete. Dr. Pierce gave another press conference. This time Derek attended in person. He sat in the back of the room and listened. We have completed the recovery and initial analysis of all 147 sets of remains from the Magnolia Lane neighborhood. Dr. Pierce announced. Through a combination of forensic analysis, historical records, and witness testimony, we have been able to identify 112 of the victims by name. 112. 35 would remain nameless forever, lost to history despite Derek's best efforts. The remains show clear evidence of a coordinated event. The victims were killed over the course of several hours on January 15, 1923. They were buried in a common grave without ceremony or markers. The land was subsequently seized and remained vacant for 4 decades before being developed into a residential subdivision. Dr. Pierce paused, looked directly at the camera. What happened in Cypress Grove was not an accident. It was not a riot. It was a deliberate, systematic attack on an entire black community. And it was covered up by local authorities who seized the land and erased all records of the town's existence. This is not ancient history. There are living survivors. There are living descendants. This happened in America. In Florida, in living memory, the remains will be interred with full honors in November of 2010. The state of Florida has agreed to create a memorial park at this site. All 30 houses will be demolished. The land will be preserved as a historical site to ensure that Cypress Grove and its residents are never forgotten again. The press conference ended. Reporters swarmed. Derek slipped out the back. He sat in his car in the parking lot and cried. It was real now. Official. The state acknowledged it. The world knew. But 147 people were still gone. 63 children would never grow up. 35 would never have their names spoken. And Derek's dream house was being demolished to make room for a memorial to people who'd been taken 90 years ago. He'd lost everything, but at least the dead had their names back. October brought the announcement that Derek had been dreading. All 30 houses were officially condemned. Every resident had 30 days to vacate. The state would purchase the properties at market value. Market value for a house built on such a site was essentially nothing. Derek would get maybe $50,000. He'd paid $145,000. He'd spent another $30,000 on renovations. He'd lost over $100,000. His savings were gone. His dream was gone. He'd have to move back to Atlanta, back to designing strip malls and office buildings, back to the life he'd been trying to escape. Mrs. Patterson, the woman who'd accused him of knowing about the bodies, came to his door one last time. Mr. Thompson, I owe you an apology. You don't. Yes, I do. I blamed you. I was angry and scared, and I took it out on you. But you didn't do this. You found them. You made sure their story was told. And I've been nothing but hostile to you. I'm sorry. It's okay. I understand. No, it's not okay. You lost everything too. Your house, your money, your peace of mind. And instead of supporting you, the neighborhood turned on you. That was wrong. Thank you for saying that. Where will you go? Atlanta. Back to my old life. I'm sorry. Me too. She left. Derek started packing. The funeral was scheduled for November 7th, 2010. It would be held at the site where the First Baptist Church once stood. All 147 victims would be buried together in a single monument. Their names, the 112 identified, would be carved in granite. Ruth Washington would attend. At 97 years old, this would likely be her last chance to say goodbye to her parents and her community. Derek was invited to speak. I can't, he told Detective Cole when he asked. I'm not good at public speaking, and I'm not part of this story. I just found them. You're absolutely part of this story. You're the reason it's being told. The descendants want to meet you. They want to thank you. I don't want thanks. I just want them to be remembered. Then come. Let them remember together. Let them see that someone cared enough to fight for the truth. Derek agreed. November 7th was cold, 50 degrees, gray sky threatening rain. 300 people gathered at the site. Descendants, historians, community members, press. A tent had been erected, chairs set up, a podium at the front. Behind it, the granite monument, 8 feet tall, 4 feet wide, polished black stone with gold lettering. At the top, Cypress Grove, January 15, 1923. Below that, in 2 columns, 112 names, ages beside each one, 2 years old to 71. At the bottom, never forgotten, Ruth Washington sat in the front row in her wheelchair, her niece beside her. Gloria Bennett sat a few rows back. Teresa Williams, Michael Carter and his family. Dozens of descendants Derek had met over the past 2 months. A Baptist pastor from Tallahassee gave the opening prayer. Then Dr. Hartwell spoke. He explained the history of Cypress Grove, the tragedy, the cover-up, the 87 years of silence, the discovery. Then it was time to read the names. The pastor returned to the podium. He read slowly, deliberately, giving each name weight. Pastor Isaiah Freeman, age 42. Martha Freeman, age 39. Dorothy Hayes, age 28. Samuel Bennett, age 14. Thomas Wilkins, age 35. Sarah Wilkins, age 32. James Wilkins, age 8. Grace Wilkins, age 6. Emma Wilkins, age 2. On and on. 112 names. It took 25 minutes. Ruth Washington cried through all of them. When the pastor finished, there was silence. 300 people sitting in complete silence, honoring the dead. Then Ruth asked to speak. Her niece wheeled her to the podium. She adjusted the microphone down to her height. "My name is Ruth Washington," she began. Her voice was quiet but clear, strong. "I was born Ruth Freeman in Cypress Grove in 1913. I was 10 years old when they came. I watched my town burn. I watched my parents perish. I hid in a swamp for 3 days, certain I wouldn't make it." She paused, gathered herself. "For 87 years, I have carried their names in my heart. For 87 years, I have carried their stories in silence. For 87 years, I have been afraid to speak the truth. But I am not afraid anymore." Her voice grew stronger. "I am not afraid because they are not forgotten anymore. Their names are carved in stone. Their story is being told. Their lives mattered. Their deaths mattered. And the world knows." She looked out at the crowd. "They took my father because he tried to protect people. They took my mother because she tried to reach me. They took Miss Hayes because she tried to save her students. They took Samuel Bennett because he was running to freedom. They took the little ones, the babies." Her voice broke, but she continued. "They did this because they could, because we were black and they were white and the law wouldn't protect us, because our lives didn't matter to them, because they thought they could erase us from history and no one would care. But they were wrong." She pointed to the monument. "These names prove they were wrong. This crowd proves they were wrong. The man who found them, Derek Thompson, proves they were wrong." She looked at Derek sitting in the back. "Come here, child." Derek's heart stopped. Everyone turned to look at him. "Come on, don't be shy." Derek stood on shaking legs. He walked to the front. Ruth took his hand. "This man lost everything to tell our story. He lost his home, his money, his peace of mind. He didn't have to care. He could have sold the house and walked away, but he didn't. He stayed. He fought. He made sure we were remembered." She squeezed his hand. "Thank you, Derek. Thank you for giving them back their names. Thank you for giving me permission to finally speak the truth. Thank you for making sure Cypress Grove will never be forgotten again." Derek couldn't hold back anymore. He broke down, sobbing. Right there in front of 300 people. Ruth held his hand and let him cry. After several minutes, he managed to compose himself. Ruth released his hand and he returned to his seat. The service continued. More prayers, more speakers, more tears. At the end, everyone filed past the monument. They left flowers. They touched the names. They took photographs. Derek stood at the back and watched. This was closure. This was justice. This was the dead finally getting the respect they deserved. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief. Gloria Bennett approached him. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for coming. I know this has been hard on you." "I'm okay." "No, you're not. And that's okay. You don't have to be okay. What you've been through, what you've done, it takes a toll. But I want you to know it mattered. My grandfather mattered. All of them mattered. And because of you, the world knows that now. I just wish I could have done more. You did everything. You found them. You told their story. You gave them a proper burial. What more could anyone ask?" Derek didn't have an answer for that. As the crowd dispersed, Dr. Hartwell approached. "Mr. Thompson, I'm finishing my book about Cypress Grove. I'd like to include your story if you're comfortable with that." "What's my story?" "I just bought a house. I found a sinkhole. Your story is that you cared when no one else did. You pushed when everyone told you to stop. You sacrificed everything to make sure the truth came out. That's important. That's the kind of story people need to hear. I don't feel like a hero. Heroes rarely do. But you are one, whether you believe it or not." The book was published in April of 2011. It was called Cypress Grove, the town that was forgotten. Derek got a copy. He read it in one sitting. It was thorough, well-researched, respectful. Dr. Hartwell had interviewed dozens of descendants. He'd included photographs, documents, Ruth's full testimony. And yes, there was a chapter about Derek, about the discovery, about the excavation, about the fight to make sure the victims were remembered. Reading about himself felt surreal, like it happened to someone else, like he was reading about a character in a novel, but it was real. It happened, and now it was documented, permanent, part of the historical record. The book became required reading in Florida schools. Thousands of students learned about Cypress Grove, about the tragedy, about the 87 years of silence. They also learned that sometimes justice requires ordinary people to do extraordinary things, that sometimes the system fails and individuals have to step up, that sometimes caring is enough. Derek received emails, hundreds of them, from students, from teachers, from people who'd read the book. One stood out. It was from a high school student in Tampa named Jasmine Brooks. "Mr. Thompson, I read Dr. Hartwell's book in my history class. I had never heard of Cypress Grove before. I had no idea this happened in my own state. My teacher said there are probably hundreds of other stories like this that nobody knows about. That made me angry, really angry. I want to study history now. I want to find the other stories. I want to make sure no one else is forgotten. Thank you for showing me that one person can make a difference." Derek wrote back, "Jasmine, thank you for your email. You're right that there are more stories waiting to be told, more towns that were erased, more people who deserve to be remembered. I hope you become that historian. The world needs people who care about the truth, no matter how painful it is. Good luck." In May of 2011, Derek received a phone call that changed everything. It was from a woman named Diane Foster. She lived in rural Louisiana. "Mr. Thompson, I saw the documentary about Cypress Grove. I think I found something similar." Derek's heart sank. "What do you mean?" "I bought a house 2 years ago. Last month, heavy rain caused erosion in my backyard. I found remains. The police came. They've excavated 15 individuals so far, all African American, all from the early 1900s. There are local stories about a black community that disappeared around 1920. No one knew what happened to them, until now. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Don't be sorry. I'm glad I found them. They deserve to be found, just like the people in Cypress Grove. I'm calling because I need advice. How do I handle this? How do I deal with knowing I've been living on top of this?" Derek was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Honestly, It's going to be hard, really hard. You're going to have nightmares. You're going to question everything. You're going to lose your house and probably a lot of money. But you're also going to give those people something they haven't had for 100 years. Their names back, their story back, their dignity back. And that's worth everything. Thank you. That helps. Document everything. Keep records. Work with historians and forensic anthropologists. Make sure their story doesn't get buried again. And Diane, take care of yourself. See a therapist. Don't try to handle this alone. I will. Thank you. After he hung up, Derek sat in his Atlanta apartment and thought about Diane Foster. She was going through what he went through. The shock, the sorrow, the responsibility. And somewhere out there, more people were living on top of forgotten history. More stories waiting to be told. It was never going to end. But maybe that was okay. Maybe every discovery brought more justice. Maybe every name remembered was a small victory against the forces that tried to erase them. Derek visited the Cypress Grove Memorial Park once a year, every January 15th, the anniversary of the tragedy. He'd walk the paths, read the monument, sit under the old oak tree that had been standing since before the fire. He'd think about Pastor Freeman and Martha and Dorothy Hayes and Samuel Bennett and baby Emma and all 147 victims. He'd think about Ruth Washington, who died peacefully in her sleep in March 2011 at age 97. She'd lived long enough to see her parents properly buried, long enough to speak their names out loud, long enough to know they weren't forgotten. And he'd think about himself, about the man who bought a house in March 2010 looking for peace and found a graveyard instead. He lost everything that year. His house, his savings, his mental health for a while. But he gained something too. Purpose, meaning. The knowledge that he'd done something that mattered. 147 people were still gone. Nothing could change that. But they had their names back. Their story was told. They would never be forgotten again. And sometimes, in the quiet moments sitting under that oak tree, Derek could almost hear them. Not words exactly. More like a feeling, a sense of gratitude, of peace. They were home now. They were honored. They were remembered. And that, Derek decided, was enough.